Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadresho Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishne Swadhamo Bhagate Dharmagnanadibhisaha Kalau Nashtatrashamesha Pudanarko Dhunodita. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. This is the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 8, entitled Prayers by Queen Kunti. And I thought it would be suitable to look at two verses quickly because they form a natural pair, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary on this passage. So we'll begin with text 30, but we'll also touch upon text number 31. There's no verse written on the board, so I'll just recite the verse. Janma karnamacha vishvatman ajasya karturatmanaha tiryang rishishuyadahasu tat atyanta vidambanam. That means, of course it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, that although you work, although you are inactive, and that you take birth, though you are the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend amongst animals, men, sages, and aquatics. Verily, this is bewildering. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The transcendental pastimes of the Lord are not only bewildering, but also apparently contradictory. In other words, they are all inconceivable to the limited thinking power of the human being. The Lord is the all-pervading supersoul of all existence, and yet He appears in the form of a boar amongst the animals, in the form of a human being as Rama and Krishna, etc., in the form of a rishi like Narayana, and in the form of an aquatic like a fish. Yet it is said that He's unborn, and He has nothing to do. In the Shruti mantra it is said that the Supreme Brahman has nothing to do. No one is equal to or greater than Him. He has manifold energies, and everything is performed by Him perfectly, by automatic knowledge, strength, and activity. All these statements prove without any question that the Lord's activities, forms, and deeds are all inconceivable to our limited thinking power, because He is inconceivably powerful. Everything is possible in Him. Therefore, no one can calculate Him. Exactly. Every action of the Lord is bewildering to the common man. He's understood by the pure devotees because they are intimately related with Him. The devotees therefore know that although He appears amongst the animals, He's not an animal, nor a man, nor a rishi, nor a fish. He is eternally the Supreme Lord in all circumstances. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadama Hyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam. Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. In his commentary on this verse, Sridhar Swami, the original Bhagavatam commentator, simply states the problem. He doesn't solve the problem. He just restates the problem. What is the problem? Te ajasya janma. Although he is unborn, he has birth. Akartuhu karma. Although he is not the doer of anything, he acts. Tiryakshu varahari rupena. He says among the animals he appears as Varaha, etc. Nrishu Ramadi rupena. He appears as Rama and Krishna, etc. as among the human beings. Rishishu Vamanadi rupena. Vamana. What did Srila Prabhupada say in the purport about the Lord's appearance amongst the rishis? Who was paying attention? Narayana. He differs from Sridhar Swami. Oh, that's another problem. So, and then he says, Yadahasu Matsyadi Rupena. Among the aquatics, he is Matsyavatar. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary on this verse, he takes it a step further. He points out that although the Lord is contradictory in these ways, it is because he's detached from his own siddhanta. Why? Lilaiva asvadaniyeti. Aha. She's telling us here that the Lord's only purpose is to enjoy the sweetness of pastimes. He wants to enjoy pastimes. Asvadaniya, it's relishable. There are two reasons that it's relishable. One, he relishes the exchange with his devotees. Two, the devotees relish it when he behaves in inconceivable ways. Generally, people worship Rama more, and even more than that, they worship Krishna. In Laghu Bhagavatamritam, Srila Rupa Goswami says there are three forms of the Lord that are the most prominent. Does anybody know those? Three? Someone from Andhra Pradesh want to guess the first one? No. Good guess though. Narasingha. Narasingha. In Telangana, he's there in the form of Yadagiri Kutta. So, Narasingha, Rama, and Krishna, these forms. But they're increasing in the amount of bliss that they exchange with the devotees. This is why, one reason why Rupa Goswami argues in that book that Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he manifests the potencies of the Lord to the superlative degree. And the chief of those potencies is his mercy. Not only mercy, but also his beauty and the charm of his human-like pastimes, which Kunti Devi finds bewildering. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that there are two verses that go as a pair, but actually this verse continues from the previous one, in which she used the same word, Virdambanam. What does Virdambana mean? Anybody know? Jinahi Hindi aati hai. Virdambana. There, in Sanskrit at least, there are three definitions, major definitions. One is that it's an imitation, anukarana. The other definition is that it's positively cheating. That is to say, deception. And sometimes it even comes to the point of mockery. Sometimes when you act like something just to mock someone else, that's called Vrindavan also. So it's a strong word. And Kunti Devi is saying this about the Lord. You appear to be Vrindavan. You appear to be deceiving us all with your pastimes because you're unborn, but you take birth. You don't do anything, but you act. You're not a human being, you're not an animal, you're not an aquatic, you're not a rishi, but you appear as all of those. These are 4 categories are given here. So this is Vrindavan. It seems to be a deception. Deception. Divine deception. It's actually not a deception, but it's not a deception for the reason that you might think. There's a very aswadaniya reason that this is not deception, and we'll dilate on that in a moment. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he goes on to say that when you appear in various forms, you actually perfectly perform the activities of those forms. For example, since we're talking about Varaha, the Lord's boar incarnation, here in Vrindavan we see them all the time. What do? They're always, and they're running up and down the sewers, and they're doing all sorts of, we can't imagine the Supreme Lord would be acting like this, but he does it. He acts just like a pig. He uses specific terms here. He says, Tatahi varahe janmani granena prativyaha padavim vijigran, that is to say, ityadina. Even though he is the omniscient, all-powerful Supreme Personality of Godhead, in fact, he becomes a pig. It's not deception. That's the point we're getting at. He says, therefore the rishis, those who are knowers of the truth, they don't say that he's an ordinary pig. They don't say that he's a jiva impelled by karma to take birth in a lower form, and then impelled by the modes of nature to act according to the nature of that form. This is what we have to do. But he doesn't have to do this. So why does he do this? This is the next point. First of all, he makes this very clear that although he is in fact unborn and non-active, etc., still he's seen to have activities only for the purpose of lila. So is that lila a deception? Mithya? Is it false? No, it's not false. This is the point. He said, if it were not a fact, then Shukdev, Goswami, and other Atmaramas, their minds would not be attracted to the Lord. It would be irrelevant to have them attracted to the activities of an ordinary conditioned soul. Then he quotes Bhagavad-Gita, famous verse, with similar words. Janma karma cha, everybody knows. My appearance and activities, Krishna says, are transcendental. How transcendental? So much so that if you understand them in fact, then you also become transcendental. Harir hi nirguna sakshat. This is again in the Bhagavatam as well. So how is it possible then to understand? Tasmad achintyananta shaktimatoho bhagavataha ko veda tattvamiti. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur concludes his commentary on this verse asking a rhetorical question. Who can understand the activities of the Lord, whose nature is to have inconceivable, limitless potencies that simply boggle our minds? Who can understand? Prahlad Maharaj in Canto 7, Chapter 6, text number 23, gives us a hint. He uses a very specific and unusual term to describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Listen carefully. He says, Kevalanu Bhavananda Swarupa Parameshwara. Parameshwara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a person whose Swarupa, his real essence, is Kevalanu Bhava Ananda. To experience ecstasy only through personal experience. And similarly, because we said this, aswadana goes 2 ways. Do you remember what we said? It's not just the Lord relishing his pastimes when he comes. Who else relishes the Lord's pastimes when he comes? The pure devotees. In either case, they have to base their understanding of the Lord on personal experience. Yaswanubhavam akhila shruti saramekam. This is what we've already learned earlier in this canto. Shukdev Goswami is speaking the entire Bhagavatam only on the basis of Swanubhava. Swanubhava means personal experience. So how do we personally experience the Supreme Personality of Godhead? In the same passage from the 7th canto, Prahlad Maharaj gives us a nice bit of advice. He says, Tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu dayam kuruta sauhradam. Be kind to all living entities. Be nice to each other and show mercy to those less fortunate than you. Bhavam asuram unmuchya. Give up your demoniac mentality. Give up your demoniac mentality. And yaya tushyati adhokshajaha. Because by that means, the Lord adhokshaja will be pleased. Who is he speaking to in this verse? Does anyone know? Canto 7, chapter 6. He's speaking to the sons of the demons. Raise your hand if you're the son of a demon. You don't have to raise your hand, but you can understand. This verse is relevant to all of us. So this is Prahlad's advice, at least in that section. Now I'm going to continue to the next verse and then we'll finish. Next verse is also very well known. Gopyadate tvare kratagrasitam atavad yate dashashrukhalilanjana sampramaksham vaktram niniya bhayabhavanaya sthitasya samam vimohayati bhirabiyad bibheti. What does she say now? She says, my dear Krishna, Yashoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflooded with tears, which washed the mascara from your eyes. And you were afraid, although fear personified is afraid of you. This sight is bewildering to me. Prabhupada writes here, here's another explanation of the bewilderment caused by the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Bewilderment means Vrindavan. Is it a trick? Is it an act? Is it false? What is this Vrindavan? This is the point. The Supreme Lord is the Supreme in all circumstances, as already explained. Here's a specific example of the Lord's being the Supreme and at the same time a plaything in the presence of his pure devotee. The Lord's pure devotee renders devotional service unto the Lord out of unalloyed love only. And while discharging such devotional service, the pure devotee forgets the position of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord also accepts the loving service of his devotees more relishably when service is rendered spontaneously out of pure affection without anything of reverential admiration. That's if you're a pure devotee. This morning, when my wife woke up the deity, out of spontaneous affection, she started singing, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you." Jab hum hai tere saath, so darne ki kya baat, ityadi. Anyway, so that's not necessarily a vidhi that we have to do this, so don't take it otherwise, but it was spontaneous, out of love only. She's sincerely wishing the Lord a happy birthday, and the Lord enjoys that. It's not that his birth is false, like the Mayavadis say. It's not that it's just an act. How could Shukadev Goswami, for that matter, how could Kunti Devi be bewildered if she knew that it was an act? She knew that it is not an act. And yet he acts in this bewildering way. He acts just like an ordinary boy. How does Jiva Goswami say it? Tato yadi sa bhi satyana bhavati tada tasya mohopi na sambhavet iti gamyate. It should be understood that if this were not a fact, then she would not be bewildered. This is the point. This is the point. So she's revealing her Aishwarya Gyan. She understands the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why she's bewildered. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur takes this a step further, and he says about this, Te dasha tena purvoktan nandagopadapi ati premavati yashoda dhanya yaya tavaitadrisho vashikara iti suchitam. The indication here is that Yashoda, she was in a superior position, not only to Kunti Devi. Kunti Devi had Aishwarya Gyan, whereas Yashoda had no Aishwarya Gyan. She was completely absorbed in Maya. What kind of Maya? Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya, you see? On account of that glorious absorption, she could not consider for a moment that the Lord is her son. Yes, he lifted Govardhan Hill, but actually we know it was the cowherd men. They helped him, and with their combined strength it was possible. My son could not do that. The gopis, no matter how many times they come and complain, what your son is doing to me, we can't even mention. She says, no, this is not, you people are just envious. Or either that or you want an excuse to come and see my son. She won't accept it. She is thoroughly absorbed in Yogamaya. Similarly, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, when Nimai wanted to give up his education, what did Jagannath Mishra say? He said, no, I have to make sure that he goes to school. But then they told him, no, your son is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has nothing to learn from anyone. And Jagannath Mishra, what did he reply? Does anyone know? He said, Are, he may be my son, he may be Narayan or whoever he is, but the father's duty is to teach the son, so I have to send him to school. That's all he wanted to hear. He would not accommodate anything else. You see, this is love. And it's not false, it's real, because not only does the devotee lose his understanding of the Lord loses his understanding of himself. In fact, yad bibheti swayam bhayam, even though fear is itself is afraid of Krishna is actually afraid of Mata. And how does that fear manifest? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has said it, also Jiva Goswami. Tarayashyatiti bhayasya bhavanaya sthitasya. She's going to beat me. This is what he's thinking. She's going to beat me. That's why he looked down, that's why he started crying. He was actually afraid. This is the point. This is real fear. Real action, real birth, real fear, but transcendental. This is what we have to understand. Because we are so doggedly determined to either compete with Krishna and exploit his things, or evade his authority somehow. Or, we want to deny that they have any reality, you see? Therefore, the Shastra is hammering into us, and the Acharyas are hammering into our stubborn heads and hearts again and again. No, sir. This is Anantyachintya Shakti. This is unlimited, inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord, that he becomes deeply absorbed in Leelas only for the sake of love. This is what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. Tava Leelam evasvadayami tyaha. Kunti Devi, either you take it as Kunti speaking or the Shukdev Goswami speaking, either way. I want to relish these Leelas, you see. In the Damodarashtakam, we hear the same thing. I only want to be absorbed in this sight, birth after birth after birth. Same pastime being described here. So Srila Prabhupada, therefore, he says it very well in his purport. He gives us a nice picture. If Mother Yashoda had been conscious of the Lord's exalted position, she certainly would have hesitated to punish him. But she was made to forget this situation because the Lord wanted. He wanted that pastime. So he wants this not only from Yashoda, not only from other devotees, he wants it from you also. Yes, you, personally. Why? Because every one of us has intrinsic within us. Not within us, it's what we are. We are a particular devotional potency that only we can offer to the Lord. We've double-clicked on that for lifetimes after lifetimes, but the Lord is hungry for that, and he's not going to find it anywhere else but from you. Is everyone listening, or are we distracted? Yes. So the Lord is coming here to this world, anuadhavat, the Bhagavatam says in the 11th canto. He's actually chasing us down because he's that much eager to have the love that only we can offer it. And we're doggedly determined to withhold this love from him. That's what it means to be a conditioned soul. It's a choice. So what is the easy method then to approach the ideal that Prahlad Maharaj has already suggested? Anybody remember what Prahlad suggested we do in order to understand or experience the Lord? Give up your demoniac mentality. Be nice to everyone and be merciful to the conditioned souls, those underneath you. How do we do that? In this age, it's very simple. We chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Therefore, Janardhan Maharaj was very strongly urging everyone, Haribo! Shri Krishna Janmashtami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi. I'm going to stop here. I don't know if do I have time to take questions, or should we? If anyone has any burning questions, I'll take one question. Otherwise, it looks like everyone is satisfied, so we can move on to the next speaker. That would be you. Our esteemed temple president, Panchagoda, decades long position. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.